on, you think you can blow through a red light and just shrug it off? You could have killed somebody, you hear me?
I'm listening, Chief. Don't get smart.
Hold on, is that thing recording me?
It's been recording since you walked up.
All right. Well, sir, for the record, you're being cited for failing to stop. You understand?
I understand.
We just get the tickets.
We'll have you on your way shortly.
Blue lights flashed across the quiet street. A patrol unit blocked the lane. A sedan sat near the curb with its engine running. The police chief stepped out of his SUV and marched toward the driver's window. His voice sounded loud, sharp, and tense. He accused the driver of reckless movement through a neighborhood patrol zone. The driver kept his window down and held a phone in his hand. The chief leaned close and raised his voice again. Officers gathered around the car. The driver kept recording. The chief did not notice the camera at first. When he saw the red light on the screen, his face changed. His voice lowered. His posture shifted. Body cams and the driver's footage caught the entire moment. The street stayed quiet except for passing traffic and the hum of power lines. Houses on both sides looked dark. Porch lights stayed off. It was late. Most residents slept. A few blinds moved when the blue lights flashed across front yards. The sedan that drew all the attention sat under a street lamp. Its turn signal blinked without pause. The driver kept his hands on the wheel. His phone stayed on the dashboard, recording the entire scene. The police chief arrived in an unmarked SUV. He parked at an angle. He stepped out fast. His boots scraped against the pavement. The chief did not wait for a patrol officer to speak. He marched toward the sedan. He pointed at the driver and accused him of reckless movement. His voice grew louder with every word. Officers watched from behind him. They knew his temper. They had seen it at scenes across the district. The driver looked calm. He kept both hands visible. The camera on his phone pointed toward the chief. The driver said he lived 2 streets over. He explained that he slowed for every sign. He explained that he stayed under the speed limit. The chief ignored the explanation. He stepped closer. His face hovered inches from the window. His breath fogged the glass. His flashlight beam hit the driver in the eyes. The driver did not back down. He kept recording. He spoke without raised tone. He asked the chief to step back. He stated his rights. He stated that he broke no law. He asked for a reason for the stop. The chief did not answer. The chief shouted again. His words echoed across the street. A dog barked behind a fence. A porch light came on across from the patrol car. Someone filmed from a second-floor window. The radio on an officer's chest crackled. Dispatch confirmed the sedan's plate. There were no warrants, no alerts, no stolen status. The vehicle registration matched the neighborhood. The officer holding the radio looked uneasy. He stepped near the chief and gave him the information. The chief ignored it. The chief ordered the driver to step out. The driver refused. He stayed in the car with both hands visible. The camera never moved. Another officer walked toward the chief. His badge had sergeant stripes. He spoke in a calm tone. He told the chief that the stop needed grounds. He suggested a citation if the chief believed there was an offense. The chief snapped at him. The sergeant stepped back. He looked at the other officers. They shared silent looks. They knew the body cams recorded all of it. They knew the driver's phone recorded from a front angle. The driver sat still. He spoke each word with a slow voice. His words stayed polite. The chief pulled on the door handle. It stayed locked. The chief ordered the window down again. The driver lowered it 2 inches. The chief shouted again. His voice reached the end of the block. More porch lights came on. Neighbors looked from their lawns. The driver leaned near the window and pointed at the phone on the dashboard. The screen showed a bright red LED at the top. The lens captured the front seat, the street, the officers, and the chief. At that moment, the chief noticed it. His expression changed. His voice dropped. His shoulders lowered. He stepped back from the door. He looked around for a supervisor. He faced 2 of his own officers who watched with blank expressions. The sergeant walked forward again. He asked the chief to lower his voice. He asked the driver to sit still while they confirmed his statement. The chief nodded without a word. The driver recorded every second. The silence felt heavy. No one spoke for several moments. The radio crackled again. Dispatch informed the sergeant that Internal Affairs monitored the channel when the chief was on any scene at night. The chief heard the message. His jaw locked, the sergeant asked for the driver's name. The driver gave it. He also gave his address. He stated where he lived. The sergeant checked the license and the registration. Both matched. The driver had no open case, no suspension, no reason for arrest or citation. The sergeant returned the documents. He told the driver he was free to leave. The chief took a slow breath. His eyes stayed on the phone. The driver asked for badge numbers. He asked for the chief's name. The chief gave both. His voice sounded low and controlled. The driver stayed silent for a moment. He ended the recording, but another phone sat in the center console facing the rear window. It recorded the scene from a second angle. The driver activated it before he drove. The chief did not notice that part. The car rolled forward and turned at the next intersection. The scene ended for the officers, but the night did not end for the department. The driver parked in his driveway one street away. He sat in his car for several minutes. He saved both video files. He replayed the first clip. He zoomed in on the chief's face. The chief screamed for more than a minute straight. The audio caught every word. The driver saved the file to a cloud folder. He sent himself a copy by email. He made 2 backups. The next morning, the driver filed a complaint at the station. The front desk deputy asked for the reason. The driver handed over a flash drive. The flash drive held the full video. The deputy watched the first 10 seconds. He swallowed hard. He excused himself and walked into the back hallway. He handed the flash drive to the shift supervisor. The supervisor plugged it into a computer. He watched the video twice. He called the captain. Officers gathered in an office and played the clip on a larger screen. The chief's voice boomed through the speakers. The camera showed the chief's posture, his face, and his approach to the window. The sergeant's warnings played clear. The chief ignored every basic rule. The captain paused the video. He stared at the screen for several seconds. An internal affairs investigator arrived. He asked for all bodycam footage from the scene. Officers submitted file transfers. The investigator watched every clip. The angles matched the phone footage. The chief's tone shifted when he noticed the recording. The investigator wrote notes. He called the city attorney. The city attorney requested a copy. The driver received a call that afternoon. The department asked him to come in for a formal statement. He agreed. He walked into the station lobby with a small folder. He met with 2 investigators in a private interview room. He explained why he stopped on the street. He described the chief's approach. He described the change in tone. He provided his backups in case the flash drive failed. The city attorney arrived and reviewed the video again. He watched the part where the chief shouted in the window. He watched the part where the sergeant tried to control the scene. He watched the moment the chief noticed the recording. He did not speak until the video ended. The investigator requested a written timeline from all officers at the scene. Each officer wrote a statement. The sergeant's statement matched the video. 2 patrol officers wrote that the chief acted without cause. The radio log showed no urgent call. The plate check cleared the driver. Nothing indicated criminal activity. Internal Affairs opened a file. They labeled the complaint active. The chief learned about it the next morning. He walked into the station early. He met the captain in the hallway. The captain asked him to wait in a conference room. Internal Affairs walked in and placed the flash drive on the table. They asked the chief for a statement. His face turned pale. He leaned back in the chair. He pressed his hands together. He asked for his union rep. By noon, the investigation spread through the station. Officers whispered in the hallways. No one spoke to the press. The driver kept quiet online. He did not post the video. He did not send it to the news. He waited. He wanted the department to handle it on record. He wanted every piece of the investigation documented. A week passed. The chief stayed on duty but spent his time in the office. He did not respond to calls. He did not make public contact. The city council requested a briefing. The city attorney showed them the flash drive. Council members watched the clip in a closed meeting. Some shook their heads. Some wrote notes. Some already knew the chief had drawn complaints in the past. But none had footage like this. The driver received a letter. The letter confirmed that Internal Affairs accepted the investigation. The letter promised that the findings would be reviewed by city leadership. The letter explained that the department wanted a calm process. The driver placed the letter in his folder. He printed copies. He waited for the next step. The chief met with his union rep. They prepared a statement. They claimed the chief acted under stress. They claimed the driver matched a suspect's vehicle from a recent call. The investigator checked that claim. There was no call for a matching vehicle. There was no bulletin. There was no report of a reckless sedan that night. The investigator marked that section of the statement as false. By the end of the week, bodycam footage leaked to an online forum. A short clip showed the chief near the window shouting. It did not show the driver or the end of the scene. Even that short clip went viral in the city. Residents argued online. Some defended the chief, many did not. The city attorney moved fast. He called a press conference for the following day. The driver arrived at the press conference and stood near the back. City leaders talked about respect and policy. They promised transparency. Reporters asked about the video. The city attorney confirmed that the chief's conduct fell outside policy. The crowd reacted with stunned silence. Reporters asked if the chief would lose his job. The city attorney said the investigation was still active. He promised action after the full review. The driver left the building without speaking. He walked to his car and sat in the front seat. He pressed his phone screen and saved a new copy of the video. He felt relief. He knew the investigation moved forward. He started the engine and drove toward home. The chief sat in his office that night. He watched the video once more. His voice blasted through the speakers. He heard each word. He heard the change in tone when he saw the phone. He closed his eyes. His future felt uncertain. He waited for the next call from Internal Affairs. The morning shift arrived at the station with tight shoulders and quiet voices. Everyone knew the video spread far across the city. Some officers refused to talk about it. Others whispered in corners. Some checked local news on their phones when supervisors turned away. The hallway near the command office stayed tense. The chief did not leave his room. His door stayed closed. Internal Affairs set up a workstation in the conference room. A stack of printed reports filled a long table. Every officer at the scene wrote statements. Dispatch logs matched the timeline. Bodycam clips lined up with radio traffic with no gaps. The investigator went frame by frame. He paused each time the chief stepped near the driver's window. He wrote notes on every movement, every order, and every break in policy. The sergeant from that night walked into the room. He did not sit. He placed his statement on the table and looked straight at the investigator. He did not try to defend the chief. He did not protect him. He told the exact story. He stated that he warned the chief that the stop had no grounds. He stated that he asked for calm. He stated that the chief ignored every attempt to correct the scene. The investigator thanked him and marked the statement. By noon, the department legal advisor reviewed each detail. The advisor read the chief's written defense. Parts of it did not match dispatch records. Parts of it did not match body cams. The advisor set the statement aside. The advisor told the investigator that the city council wanted full results by the end of the week. The investigator nodded and kept reviewing evidence. Across town, the driver spent the morning in his office. He worked a regular job at a shipping company. He sat at a desk, answered calls, and packed orders. Co-workers asked if he was the man from the video. He said yes. They asked if he planned to sue. He said he filed a complaint. He said he trusted the process. Some supported him. Some told him to stay careful. The video reached thousands of screens, but he stayed quiet online. He waited. By late afternoon, the chief left his office. He walked through the hallway with slow steps. Officers glanced up when he passed, then looked away. He felt every stare. He kept his head down. He drove home in silence. When he reached his driveway, he got out of his SUV and sat on the porch. His phone buzzed with messages from union reps, friends, and family. Some told him to fight. Some told him to apologize. He ignored all of them. The next day, the investigator called the driver for a second interview. The driver arrived on time. The interview room felt cold and quiet. The investigator asked more specific questions. He asked about the window height. He asked about tone. He asked about the distance between the chief and the vehicle. The driver described everything in detail. He never raised his voice. He never exaggerated. The investigator took notes and thanked him. While the driver spoke with the investigator, the chief met with the city attorney. The attorney did not speak for several seconds. She stared at the printed transcript of the bodycam audio. She asked the chief why he ignored his sergeant. The chief said he believed the driver broke traffic laws. The attorney asked for proof. The chief had none. The attorney ended the meeting fast. The chief left the building with his jaw tight. At sunset, local reporters gathered outside the station. They waited for any hint of action. They interviewed residents who watched the video. Some called for termination. Some called for training. Some wanted the city to release every clip from the scene. Reporters asked officers to comment. Officers refused. 2 days later, Internal Affairs completed the report. The investigator walked into the command office and placed the file on the captain's desk. The captain read every page. It took over an hour. When he finished, he placed his hands on the desk and stared at the wall. The policies were clear. The chief ordered the driver out of the car without grounds. The chief refused to accept cleared plate data. The chief shouted at a citizen with no lawful reason. All of it was on camera. A city council meeting began that night. Residents filled every seat. Some stood in the hallway. The city attorney presented the findings. The video played on a large projector. Silence filled the room. No one interrupted. No one spoke during the scene. When the clip ended, the attorney explained that the chief faced disciplinary action. The council voted to place him on leave pending final action. The chief's family watched the vote on local TV. His son sat on the couch with his head down. His wife sat in a chair across the room. The phone rang without pause. The chief did not answer. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at the floor. The next morning, the city issued a press release. The message explained that the chief was on administrative leave. A captain would act as interim head of the department. The release also confirmed that the driver's complaint was sustained. The press shared the news across town. The driver saw the headline while eating breakfast. He read the article twice. His phone rang. A reporter asked for comment. The driver declined. He walked outside and sat on his porch. Neighbors waved. Some thanked him for standing his ground. He nodded and went back inside. An emergency staff meeting took place at the station. Officers filled the briefing room. The captain spoke from the front. She said the department would honor policy on every call. She said body cams recorded for a reason. She reminded officers that respect was not optional. She told them to treat every citizen with calm professionalism. Officers listened with stiff posture. Weeks passed. A hearing date was set. The chief appeared with his union rep. Internal Affairs presented bodycam clips. The driver's phone footage played as well. The board asked questions. They asked why the chief pressed the door handle. They asked why he shouted without cause. They asked why he ignored his sergeant. The chief had no strong defense. He blamed stress. He blamed confusion. He blamed workload. The board did not accept it. The board voted to remove him from his position. They lowered his rank and placed him on unpaid leave for a set period. He would not return as chief. The interim captain took full command. Officers did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They stayed quiet and continued their work. The driver received official notice of the board's decision. He read the letter 3 times. The city thanked him for his cooperation. The letter explained that the department would use the case as training. The driver placed the letter in his folder with the video backups. Later that week, the driver walked into a store for groceries. A man near the produce section stopped him. The man said he watched the video and respected how calmly the driver handled the scene. The driver thanked him and moved on. At checkout, another person thanked him. The driver nodded again. He was not looking for attention. He only wanted fairness. The story did not end there. Lawyers contacted the driver. Some urged him to file a lawsuit. Some asked for rights to the video. He declined all requests. He said the process worked. He said the investigation stood on its own evidence. The chief packed his office at the station. He placed plaques and photos in a cardboard box. He stopped and stared at a framed certificate on the wall. His hand shook when he took it down. He walked outside with the box and placed it in his truck. He sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. Then he turned the key and drove away from the station for the last time in uniform. The interim captain reviewed new training plans. She ordered mandatory sessions for traffic stops, citizen contact, and camera protocol. She instructed supervisors to enforce standards on every scene. The department printed new policy cards for patrol belts. The driver went back to his regular life. He woke early for work, walked his dog in the evenings, and mowed his lawn on weekends. The video stayed saved in his folder. He did not delete it. He kept it locked away with the letter and a copy of the investigation results. Some residents forgot about the video after a few months. Others remembered every detail. The department learned from it. Officers treated night stops with more patience. Supervisors monitored scenes more closely. The interim captain earned respect through steady leadership. The driver never spoke to the former chief again. He never saw him around town. The city moved forward. Patrol units continued to roll through neighborhoods. Blue lights still flashed on dark streets. But something changed. Officers took extra time before raising their voices. They followed procedure step by step. They kept their heads level. The driver did not regret recording. The footage told the full story. No one needed opinions or rumors. The truth lived in the frames. Weeks passed with quiet progress inside the police station. The interim captain reshaped patrol operations. She met with shift sergeants, audit teams, and training staff. She ordered random checks of bodycam files to ensure compliance. Officers noticed the change. Patrol briefings felt stricter. Supervisors asked pointed questions at roll call. Every stop had to include clear policy steps confirmed on video. Most officers supported the shift. A few grumbled under their breath, but they stayed silent when supervisors stood near. The city council tracked the new structure and praised the updated standards in private meetings. Residents took notice, too. The department received fewer complaints. Traffic stops produced fewer confrontations. Patrol units paused before stepping into tense scenes. The body cams played a major part in every call. One morning, the driver from the viral video sat in his backyard with a laptop. He checked his email. A message from a civil rights group awaited him. It praised his restraint, his calm voice, and his refusal to escalate. The message asked if he wanted public support. He replied with one short sentence. He preferred to move forward quietly. The group thanked him and let it go. At the station, the interim captain gathered all field units for a quarterly briefing. Officers filled the room. She reminded everyone that high-profile failures stain an entire department. She explained that the city trusted the force to enforce law with fairness. She pointed at the projector where the policy list appeared. Respect, grounds for a stop. Clear commands, non-escalating voice. These rules were already written, but this time she expected them followed without exception. Training staff played portions of recorded stops from the past month. The new standard showed progress. Officers stayed calm in heated moments. Drivers complied with less friction. The sergeant from the viral stop stood near the wall, arms crossed, silent. He did not need to speak. The room knew his actions helped restore order the night the chief lost control. That afternoon, the city council met again. Their agenda included new funding for training and updated equipment. The mayor explained that the bodycam system saved the city from larger conflict. Without video, the truth would have been hard to prove. The council voted for expanded storage and cloud backup for every patrol unit. The driver lived his routine and kept his distance from the station. But one morning, a letter arrived at his house from the city attorney. It included a written apology signed by leadership. It thanked him for cooperation and for respecting the process. It acknowledged the mistake. It promised continued reform efforts. The letter surprised him. He placed it in the same folder with the rest of the documents. A month later, a community meeting took place at the library. The interim captain attended. Residents filled the seats. Some asked why the former chief lost his position. The captain explained the findings without aggressive tone. She said the department must earn trust each day. She welcomed honest questions. The driver sat in the back row. He did not speak. He wanted the department to handle its own progress. As the meeting ended, the captain approached him. She recognized him from the investigation. She thanked him for giving officers a chance to correct the record. She told him the changes took hold faster because he stayed calm during the scene. The driver nodded. He left without asking for anything. Meanwhile, the former chief lived away from the spotlight. He attended a required training program ordered by the board. He sat through each session in silence. He learned the correct rules he had ignored on the street that night. Other officers in the sessions recognized him. They avoided direct comments. They stayed focused on training modules and real-world policies. The department replaced his nameplate on the office door. The walls were painted. The desk was rearranged. The interim captain moved in full-time. She hung no plaques. She kept the room plain and neat. Officers respected her focus. Patrol units continued to record dozens of calls each week. Internal Affairs audited random clips. Compliance numbers went up. In past years, some officers forgot to activate cameras. Now, every unit kept cameras active during stops. Bodycam policies were part of daily briefings. One night, a patrol officer pulled over a truck with a broken taillight. The driver stepped out and argued. The officer stayed calm. He kept his hands visible. He maintained distance. He informed the driver about the traffic issue. The driver argued again but stayed aware of the camera. The officer wrote a citation and ended the stop without force. The truck drove away. The officer made a note in his log, then continued his shift. At the end of that week, the department reviewed the stop in training. The interim captain pointed out the steady posture and justified commands. She used the moment as a model for the rest of the room. Officers nodded. Back at home, the driver spent his weekend working on small chores. He trimmed hedges, washed the car, and fixed a fence gate. When he walked down the driveway, a neighbor asked about the case. He said it was over. The neighbor asked if the video helped change anything. The driver smiled and said yes. The neighbor thanked him and shook his hand before walking back to his yard. The former chief finished his training sessions after several weeks. He had no badge, no office, and no command. He looked older than he had the night of the stop. A formal letter told him the department would not renew his appointment in any position. His career in the city ended quietly. He packed his last uniform into a box and stored it in his garage. His phone stayed silent most days. The sergeant from the viral stop earned respect among his peers. Officers asked him for guidance on difficult calls. He trained younger patrol units. He explained how to control scenes without shouting. He repeated the same line every time. Calm tone wins. Patrol staff quoted those words in briefing. Months later, the driver received a final update from the city attorney. The case was closed. The investigation stayed on record permanently. The footage stayed archived. The department issued revised policy handbooks to all officers. The letter thanked him for patience and cooperation. The driver stored the update with the other paperwork. He felt relief. He no longer thought about the stop each day. He stopped checking for news articles. He stopped replaying the video. The traffic stop no longer defined his life. It became a chapter the city learned from. One late afternoon, he took a walk in the neighborhood. A patrol cruiser rolled past him at a cautious speed. The officer waved. The driver waved back. The cruiser turned the corner and continued on patrol. The street stayed peaceful. The police department's website featured new language on community trust. It promised respect, calm decisions, and proper review of every complaint. Citizens read it, and many believed it. The interim captain continued her work with steady leadership. She pushed training forward. She demanded consistency. She reminded officers that the badge held responsibility, not privilege. The department moved toward a better standard by handling the mistake the right way. The community saw the change. Trust grew one day at a time. The driver walked home and stepped onto his porch. The evening air felt calm. He entered the house, placed his keys on the table, and sat near the window while the sunset faded. The case was behind him, but the result shaped the future of his city. Spring arrived with warmer nights and long daytime patrols. The interim captain kept the station focused. She enforced regular audits. She reviewed logs. She walked the halls, asked questions, and checked bodycam compliance. The station felt different than it had before. Officers took pride in controlled scenes. Dispatchers noted fewer angry calls. Traffic stops ended without conflict. The sergeant from the viral stop handled a busy schedule. He trained new recruits on policy. He met with field units at roll call. He reviewed camera footage each week. His calm approach became a model. Recruits respected him. Veterans listened to him. He spoke without force. He stayed steady. One afternoon, the driver received an email from a local high school teacher. The teacher asked if he would speak to a civics class about rights and respectful contact with law enforcement. At first, he wanted to decline. He thought his role was done. Then he changed his mind. He replied and agreed to visit. The day of the visit, he stepped into the classroom. Students watched the viral clip before he arrived. They waited for his words. He told them what happened. He explained that he stayed calm because anger would not help. He said the body cam and his phone told the full story. He told them that respect on both sides matters. He left the school without fanfare. The teacher thanked him. Back at the station, the interim captain scheduled a meeting with the city council. She wanted to request more training funds. The council listened. She explained how the department improved since the night of the stop. She presented data. Traffic complaints dropped. Use of force reports dropped. Body cam activation reached full compliance. The council approved the request. The department hired 2 new training instructors. They built scenarios based on real stops. Officers practiced during off-duty hours. They learned to speak with calm tone. They learned to stand at safe distance. They learned to let cameras tell the truth. The training center updated its equipment. New patrol units received upgraded cameras with wider angles and better audio. One evening, a report reached the station about a fight near a restaurant. Patrol units responded fast. A crowd formed near the parking lot. 2 men argued. Officers separated them. One man screamed about rights and badges. The other accused him of throwing a metal chair. The officers stayed calm. They recorded the entire scene on body cams. They gathered witnesses. They wrote detailed notes. The scene ended without force. The department reviewed the footage later. The interim captain praised the officers for steady control. Months passed. The driver continued to work at his job. He saw fewer strangers point or whisper. The attention faded. His street stayed peaceful. His neighbors waved when he walked his dog. The night of the stop felt distant. The former chief lived far from the station. He sold his house and moved to a smaller place out of town. He looked for new work. No police agency called him back. He applied for private security positions. Some asked for background checks. Some wanted references. None hired him. His career ended. He knew why. One morning, a reporter reached out to the driver again. She asked if he wanted to share his story for a documentary about police accountability. He thought about it. He liked privacy. He liked quiet life. But he understood his case had value. He agreed on one condition: the documentary must show the full investigation, not only the clip. The reporter agreed. The filming took place over 2 days. The driver sat in a small studio and told the full timeline. He explained that he never aimed to ruin anyone. He wanted truth and process. He said the department changed because the video made denial impossible. The documentary team thanked him and left. At the station, officers learned that the documentary was in production. None of them tried to hide from it. They understood that the video did not attack the department. It helped correct it. The interim captain reminded everyone that accountability protects good officers and removes bad habits. A few officers reached out to the driver. They thanked him privately. They said his calm voice forced the department to grow. The driver thanked them in return. He said he respected officers who followed the law and served without aggression. One weekend, the city held a public event in the park. Food stands lined the sidewalk. Children ran near the grass. Officers set up a booth with patrol cars on display. The interim captain attended. The sergeant attended. The driver showed up with friends. When he walked past the booth, the captain called his name. She thanked him again. She handed him a printed card with updated policy and training details. He folded it and placed it in his pocket. Later that day, a resident approached him and asked if the video changed anything in real terms. The driver said yes. He pointed at the patrol booth. He pointed at the officers answering questions with patience. The resident nodded and walked back to the field with her children. At sunset, the driver sat on a bench and watched patrol cars leave the event. The engines hummed down the street. The blue lights faded. The night stayed quiet. Months later, the city posted an update online. It described the outcome of the reforms. Complaints against officers dropped. Traffic stops ended faster. Supervisors praised the new behavior. The department announced a scholarship for students who studied criminal justice with a focus on public accountability. The city funded it each year. The driver read the update and smiled. He printed it and added it to his folder. The folder had grown thick with documents, letters, and screenshots. He placed it in a desk drawer and closed it. 1 year after the stop, the patrol car from that night pulled into his street. A new officer stepped out and greeted neighbors. The sergeant walked behind him. The sergeant saw the driver and waved. The driver waved back. No tension followed, no anger, no unresolved conflict. The past stayed in the past. The interim captain released a department statement that honored officers who demonstrated steady control and respect in the field. The sergeant received recognition for leadership during the difficult transition. Officers shook his hand. He stayed composed. He said the badge had no value without trust. The documentary aired on local television. It told the full story from start to finish. It showed the original clip. It showed the investigation. It showed the reforms. Viewers saw a flawed moment turn into progress. The phone recording and the body cams made truth clear. Residents gathered online and praised the new direction. They thanked the city for responding without delay. They thanked officers who stood for policy. They thanked the driver for standing his ground without anger. The former chief watched the documentary from his apartment. He sat alone at a small table. When the video of himself appeared on screen, he lowered his head. The story moved on without him. The driver turned off his TV at the end of the broadcast. He locked his doors and walked into the backyard. The night air stayed calm. Crickets filled the yard with soft noise. He took a slow breath and looked toward his house. He had no fear of patrol cars. He had no frustration toward officers. He felt peace. That night he slept soundly. Thank you for watching this story. The next video follows a new body cam scene that forced a department to correct training across an entire county. Stay ready for that upload. For viewers who want a free guide, download the Public Rights Checklist that explains how to record police interactions and protect your footage without conflict.